Secret agent man, secret agent man. They've given you a number and taken away your name.
That's a film, isn't it?
I have a question for you, Matthew.
Yeah, go on.
Question number one, are we recording?
Yeah, we're recording.
We're recording. Okay, cool. Why does that movie exist?
Well, Universal weren't accustomed to making money, having existed for 100 years and having many of the most profitable films ever to their name. Remember when I said to you, no matter how bad you're imagining it is, I promise you it's worse, and you said, I'm really looking forward to it? How do you feel now, fuckwad? This is Secret Agent Man. I am so insane. I almost said this is There Will Be Movies. Welcome to EnterTheRealWorld.com. This is Secret Agent Man, episode 10, The Bourne Legacy, aka 2 hours of Tony Gilroy telling on himself. My name is Matt Waters. I'm joined by Ben Phillips. Ben, how do you feel? Do you need therapy?
I don't. It's just one of those things where I was just watching it and it was like a realization that like this is an utterly pointless movie.
It's nothing.
There were moments where I was just like, oh no, there are bits of this that are salvageable. It has things to say about like surveillance.
Drones are bad. It felt like kind of like Tony Gilroy was looking at like the 4 years in between this movie and Bourne Ultimatum was just like, well, drones are a thing in the media now and mass shootings have perked up a little bit. And then decided to put them all into a movie that also features Jeremy Renner popping pills to become a super soldier. Asian pharmaceutical companies.
Asian Terminator.
Yes, Asian Terminator. I will give you £10 right now if you can tell me the first fucking thing about Ed Norton or Stacey Keach's characters.
Ed Norton is a Navy SEAL?
Nope.
Okay.
See? It's nothing.
He's something though, isn't he? He's
like a retired Air Force person, I'm told by not the film, because the film loves to not tell you things. Such as Operation Outcome is part of Blackbriar, so potentially Paz and Desh were Outcome operatives. And Jason Bourne still killed one of them.
Yeah, I said to you during the film, and I was just like, this feels like such a process movie. It feels like something made in the wake of a Breaking Bad. And obviously Breaking Bad makes a big point of kind of being like, right, we're going to be the show that shows step by step how things happen. So like season 1 is like, we're going to do 3 episodes on him disposing of bodies, is how the show starts.
Yes.
This feels like that kind of thing where it's just like, we're going to show you the step by step how the government would track this person, how they would go about kind of like getting rid of this kind of thing. But then
that teased being interesting, but then it wasn't.
Yeah, but then they kind of go like, right, what if we took out like half of all the process and did a subpar mystery box kind of thing where you're kind of doubting everything that's going on, but also the movie's far more apparent than you think it is? Because like there were about like a half dozen plot points. I was just like, oh, okay, this is going to be something they're going to like subvert my expectations on later. And it's like, no, that kind of shady conversation at the beginning of the movie, that's just how it was. We just decided to relay information to you in a way that made you not trust it.
Yeah, you were like, are we going to find out why he's in trouble? I was like, you know why he's in trouble. And that's just it. Oh, what a sack of shit.
It was just like, oh, he's having a conversation with Oscar Isaac, and it's like, cool, okay. So
when's the shoe gonna drop?
Yeah, like he's needling this guy because like he's in love with someone and has been put in this place. So maybe there's like something more to it. Maybe I don't know. There'd be anything to it, but it's just.
Are they gonna try and kill each other?
Are they gonna try and kill each other? Oh, they didn't show Oscar Isaac's corpse. Maybe that's gonna be something that's gonna come back.
Mm-hmm. The sequel no one was calling for.
Yeah, the sequel no one was calling for. The actor no one was asking for. We've got back, like, all the actors from the last movie for a scene. Like, I think all of them have, like, a scene that they do something.
No Julia Stiles. But
no Julia Stiles, but, like,
almost
Joan Allen, Albert Finney, David Strathairn, Scott Glenn all come back for wrapping up the character from the last movie. Yep. Really?
Yeah.
And that's about it?
Because they decided to have the beginning of this movie entirely intertwined with the events of the Bourne Ultimatum. Jason is coming to New York, Jason got away, blah, blah, blah. And it starts with, like, reusing footage, and then it evolves into, like, actual, oh, yeah, we paid them to do one scene. Oh,
God, released August 2012, so 5 years after the Bourne Ultimatum. 5 years and they couldn't get their shit together.
You know what I'm happy about?
What?
Avengers was out a couple of weeks before this.
I know, Jeremy Renner's star was just on the rise. He's in Ghost Protocol, he's in Avengers, he's in this. He almost had the keys to 2 franchises.
Avengers is my favourite movie of those 3.
Uh-huh.
He's probably best in Ghost Protocol.
I guess.
For as weird as that role is for him, where, like, it starts off interesting, and then obviously they kind of go, like, right, but the ending's not happening the way it was, so your role's just now different.
Fight some dude.
Yeah, and then there's this movie where he's, like, a drug addict.
Yeah.
But to stop himself from being legally not admittable to the army, as you told me afterwards.
Yep.
Well, actually, no, because also, like, they talk about, like, the withdrawal that he'd go through would make him even more stupid than that as well. Like, he would functionally be brain dead if he comes off the drugs.
Yes, he would regress past where he started, which is lower than the army are willing to accept, which we'll get into. But, as I said, directed by Tony Gilroy, who has come off directing Michael Clayton, his debut, and Duplicity. Michael Clayton got a lot of awards. He got nominated for some stuff. And yet this is a tour de force in, I don't think this dude can direct. He, of course, as you know, his name has come up a lot in this series because he wrote the first 3. Wrote in sort of air quotes for the third one because, as said, his draft was apparently terrible. But he's back. He's seized full control. No Paul Greengrass. No Matt Damon. And he brought his brother, Dan Gilroy, who would direct and write Nightcrawler about a year or 2 later, which is a good movie. He's along for the ride as well. They wrote it together. And their brother John edited it. So it's a Gilroy family fuckfest. It's 2 hours and 15 minutes long for some reason. By far the longest Bourne film. Always a good sign, you know, when you're just deciding to change your creative team. $125 million budget, so it's the highest budget of the Bourne movies, but only made $276 million, which makes it the least profitable of the Bourne movies because it only just doubled budget. So the longest, the most expensive, the least profitable, and the worst.
So remember how Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol looks really damn good?
Yeah.
These movies have got the same cinematographer.
Really? I guess they couldn't do it with the colour palette of white and grey.
but yeah, so Robert Elswit, probably most famous for his cinematography on There Would Be Blood, did cinematography on Ghost Protocol, and then presumably moved straight on to Bourne Legacy after doing that.
Presumably came off his chems and his IQ dropped, and then he made this. Oh, God. So, yeah, as mentioned when we did Ultimatum, the plan was to end the Bourne films with Ultimatum, but then they got greedy and started talking about doing a 4th one with everyone coming back. George Nolfi and Joshua Zatuma wrote drafts. Nolfi moved on to do Adjustment Bureau. And then Matt Damon was talking about, oh, yeah, we're going to do one. But then Paul Greengrass decided he was going to pass. And Matt Damon said he didn't want to do one without him, so he stepped back, but was publicly acknowledging that Universal were probably going to do a prequel or a film with a different director and actor in it. But then when Tony Gilroy stepped up, he said we couldn't possibly do a prequel. You couldn't replace Matt Damon. So his chief concern was to enhance what came before. He failed quite spectacularly. And he was actually originally only brought in for like a 2-week, I guess, brainstorming session, like a producer type role, just to talk about the direction they would take it. And he said he stayed on the project because he felt that this character they invented, Aaron Cross, was so compelling. I strongly disagree. Speaking of Aaron Cross, Jeremy Renner beat out Taylor Kitsch, Shia LaBeouf, Adam Brody, Luke Evans, Jake Gyllenhaal, Josh Hartnett, Tobey Maguire, Michael Fassbender, Dominic Cooper, Paul Dano, Joel Edgerton, and Oscar Isaac for this role, among other people who I didn't deem quite big enough to write down. Every single one of those probably would have been better, but hey. I mean, I don't want to say Jeremy Renner is the reason the film is bad. The film is bad on a number of levels. I would say almost all of them.
I think that this movie doesn't fail on an acting level. I think everyone in this movie is trying their best.
Yes.
Raquel
Weisz, especially, I think, is probably faring the best out of everyone. They're giving us shit all to do, as is tradition with women in this podcast. But yeah, just, Jeremy Renner's an asshole, so... And also, I really can't believe that Hollywood looked at Jeremy Renner and his career and him and were like, yeah, this is a guy that people want to root for and is going to be a charismatic lead in a franchise. He is much better at playing villains because he's very clearly a dickhead in real life. So
I hope people don't think we're some kind of Jeremy Renner fan podcast.
There have been a disproportionate number of Jeremy Renner movies discussed here. Are you going to take him off the All Marvel list for our MCU stuff?
I mean, I already said I was taking him off for JJJ.
Okay, that's fine. There were full plans to do a full-on Aaron Cross, is the lead of this franchise now. I don't know if they would have kept calling them Bourne, or if they would have been Aaron Cross in Blood Skull, I don't know. But that subsided as the sequel entered developmental hell. Matt Damon and others repeatedly were we're not going to cross the two characters over, and then eventually Matt Damon came back, and I'm pretty sure Aaron Cross there are no plans for him to ever return to cinema. But
from what I remember, there are also no references to super soldier enhanced drugs, and
yeah,
the movie
we haven't even gotten to that. We're doing super soldiers now. We're doing sci-fi, guys.
Yeah, the Jason Bourne does not have any of that stuff.
No. Not at all. Its entire deal was, we're the super serious, super gritty, super realistic series, while Mission Impossible is going to get more and more bombastic, and always has been a little bit sort of tongue-in-cheek, as has Bond been. And Bond got more serious, but yeah, these were always supposed to be sort of smaller, more realistic, less mainstream appeal, but, And then they're yeah, what if, super soldiers and magic pills that make smart?
Yeah, but also, we'll couch it in the idea that this is real stuff that's existed for many, many years.
Look, I've got no doubt that the US government have done various experiments with enhancement shit, but the way it's presented is such a hard I don't know, it's just, there was not a trace of this in any of the first three, and I haven't read Robert Ludlum's books. I doubt there was there. Our agent, this time, is, for the first time, not Ethan Hunt, or Jason Bourne, or James Bond. It is Aaron Cross, who is chattier than Jason Bourne. He is flirtier than Jason Bourne, and somehow that translates to him being less interesting than Jason Bourne. He
also has a boner for murder.
Yes, very kill-happy, no ounce of regret. No confusion about who he is. He's aware of what happened to it. They're going for a similar... He went through a change in this program, but he knows exactly what happened. He basically has magical powers because of the chems, hearing drones from so far out and various other things. He's just... He is getting into Ethan Hunt levels of just the Uberman. And then without them, he's a big old dum-dum, apparently. I don't understand how Tony Gilroy felt this was a compelling character. There is nothing about this character that is compelling. In a better version of the script, the idea of not wanting to lose who I am could be a compelling narrative, but it's not executed well, and this character comes across as, I would say, unlikable at times. When he's getting the examination and he's just basically harassing her, it's is this our hero now? Jason Bourne was revealed to have signed up willingly for a kill program, and he's still more likable.
Yeah, it's so weird because the entire movie is couched in this thing where, he's interrogating other people about why they're involved in it, but it feels so artificial. Every single person, he's trying to get to know them, have a conversation with them. He sits down, has that conversation with Rachel Weisz, he has that conversation with Oscar Isaac, and it's all couched in, oh, who are we as people? Let's be friends. I've never met anyone from the project before or anything like that.
Yeah. And he's got his, open disdain for the program. It's oh, what did you do? Think for yourself. And it's who are you? Who is this one-liner guy?
Yeah, he has got nothing to offer beyond this. There's no depth. He's not rebelling against the program, or at least in no way that feels significant to anything of...
he needs his fix, man.
And the movie opens in this just utterly bizarre way where we don't know who this guy is. He's in the middle of the fucking wilderness. There are wolves around. He's looking at pills. He's jumping over crevasses, and it's supposed to be impressive feats, but it's shot in such a way where it doesn't feel like it's all that impressive that he makes the jump.
It's just things that are happening, yeah.
The first section of this movie feels like someone at Universal watched The Grey and was just ooh, people like wolves in
Alaska.
the wilderness in Alaska. But like, then again, like The Grey came out like 6 months before this, so maybe everyone just had a hard on for wolves in 2012.
Well, who doesn't? Fun fact: Matt's favourite animal. I don't have a hard on for them. Jesus Christ. Anyway. Much like that comment, the entire opening of this movie is just so unnecessarily messy. Like, intertwining these three stories. Like you said, you've got Aaron Cross...
I'm sorry. You cannot call the third strain of this a story.
Well, okay. When I wrote this, I didn't realise that it was literally going to be a 30-second scene and then a shooting. But, you know, here's Aaron doing shit in the wilderness, and then here's a character who you may not remember from the previous movie, and now here's our new person in the chair, as it were, and then also here's a science lady, don't worry about it, she's going to be back in 20 minutes. And it's like, could they not have done one at a time? Because it just comes across as we realise what we've done is boring, so we edited them together to make them less boring. But instead it's just like, I am not attaching to anything here, because Aaron doesn't speak for 15 minutes, and the stuff going on with Ezra and Terso and Eric Bayer is all just so convoluted, and I kind of wish they either did a cold open with either Aaron in the snow or the CIA shit, then move to the other and then move back, rather than this just all over the place back and forth where it's impossible to get a grasp on what the fuck's going on.
I understand why you'd structure it this way, in the way of kind of like trying to make it interesting, kind of make it flow. But the three strains feel so counterintuitive to anything else that's going on. And it's like you're putting us in a setting that's so completely different to every other Bourne movie.
Yeah. And
that is completely removed from human civilization, with a character doing things we don't understand why they're doing them.
Yep.
Whilst you're also putting us into the literal same time frame as the last movie.
Yeah, the middle of the last movie.
The middle of the last movie, and kind of going like, right, you need to keep up with this because this stuff's happening contiguously.
Yeah.
With
until it isn't anymore.
And meanwhile, but also this guy's like tracking down wolves, and there are pills, and they're important. And
yeah, you've got Aaron doing a training exercise in Alaska. He is living in the wilderness. He's completely fending for himself. He's taking the medication. He reaches this safe house in record time. He has a very terse interaction with Oscar Isaac. Do you think... so they start with the very, like, on-the-nose homage to the floating in the water scene. But then he's like, oh, he's diving in. Okay. And then he emerges from the water, and it's like, is this supposed to have been an answer to Daniel Craig coming out of the water? Because Daniel Craig was a lot bigger than Jeremy Renner is. So
yeah, I think the moment after I saw it, I didn't text you that Jeremy Renner is very weirdly proportioned. I was going to text you, like, not as weirdly proportioned as Tom Cruise was in the last movie, but decently weirdly proportioned for this movie. But then the beard, and I was just like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
And then he keeps it for like the first 40 minutes of the movie, and I was just like, no, get this away from me right now. This is awful and terrible, and I don't like it.
And then he shaves on the way to Chicago, apparently.
Yeah, at some point. Maybe when he's in the plane, he's bored, and he's just flying the plane. He's like, I need to shave this awful thing off. He's clean shaven for most of the movie, but he's got the fucking goatee in flashbacks. It's like, no, that's not better.
No, there's no version of his face that is good. Oscar Isaac hates him on sight. As you said, it feels like we're waiting for something to happen here, and it doesn't, and it seems like he's kicking...
Like some conversation, something.
Yeah, he basically is like, oh, you're going to leave first thing in the morning, we're done talking. And then he's like, you might as well stay, let's talk. And then he just dies and you don't see his corpse. And, like, he asks the goddamn question about, like, oh, maybe the wolves don't think you're human anymore. And it's like, oh. But then it very much does seem that way in a minute, because the wolves do fully, like, seem to have this grudge against him. And it's like, are you saying they can smell the chems in his brain and it's making him not register? Like, what? They don't not hunt humans because they know what a human is. They just judge the shape and behaviour of a human to be not something they're interested in. Why would they be interested? Ugh! Yeah,
it's bad.
It's so bad.
You know who's good, though?
Who?
Oscar Isaac.
Yeah, he's great. We should put him in that stuff.
A certified cutie.
Yeah, when you sent me a text saying that, and I actually genuinely didn't know if you meant Oscar Isaac or Rachel Weisz. And I think the answer is both.
It is both, but in that context, it was Oscar Isaac.
Yeah.
Who, at this point, I think was just too... Like, if I'd watched this movie in 2012, he probably would have just been like, oh, it's the guy from Drive who gets his head blown off.
Yeah, I didn't register as him when I first saw it, and I was like, oh, yeah, he is in this.
And then obviously his career explodes the next couple of years.
So Aaron Cross is doing this because he missed a check-in. Yep. No greater revealed.
What does that mean? Who does he check in with? But who's his handler?
I don't know. They don't tell you. You know the scene later where she has the flashback to treating him?
Yeah.
He says something about not giving his blood work or something, and I wondered if that was supposed to have been the incident that caused this to happen, or if it was supposed to be longer ago. Because he says they've met 13 times, Stalker.
He's super smart, that man.
I know he's super smart now.
But then also, like, he does the course, which he wasn't supposed to do it in the way that he did it.
No one comes over the mountain. Why did you come over the mountain if you didn't know it was being timed?
And he does it 2 days quicker.
Yeah.
He said that he's dropped the pills, even
Which
though the
sounds
movie
like a massive lie, but they never confirm.
They never confirm it, but the movie also doesn't show that he's dropped the pills. There's a subtext in the movie that he's a junkie, and it's like, right.
Well, those are the two options. He either is a junkie for this stuff, so he's taking more than he's supposed to, so he's run out early, or he genuinely did drop it and they chose not to show us, and he is medically concerned and needs more. Neither's a great option.
Both seem confusing. One actually seems interesting, but the movie never delves into it.
No.
And never, because again, him being a junkie makes it interesting and puts some context on later scenes where he's like holding people at gunpoint going like,
give me my fucking chems.
Give me my fucking chems.
Yeah.
But
it ends up making it feel like everything vaguely good in this was an accident. Rather than they had good ideas they were incapable of following through on. There's the Jason Bourne's name is scratched in the wood of the safe house, and it's like, I know they've called it the Bourne Legacy, and I know Matt Damon's shadow was always going to loom over this, but they've also gone out of their way to make this whole thing feel lesser than. And doing stuff like that, where it's like, oh, he's a legend and you're not him. It's like, why would you do this? Why wouldn't you do like I'm not saying Triple X 2 is a good movie, but they go out of their way to be like, oh, he's better than Vin Diesel.
Yeah,
it may not be true, but fucking say it.
Do we reckon the previous record was held by Jason Bourne?
Yeah, probably.
And the movie's like holding back, going like, but there's probably a cut scene where Oscar Isaac goes, I don't know, some guy named Jason, and the movie like hangs on it for a second. It's just like, oh, Jason Bourne.
I don't fucking know. Speaking of Jason Bourne, so Ezra Kramer is back, and he is briefing Stacy Keach, who is allegedly called Mark Terso, which I had to look up, because I don't think they ever say that. And they don't tell you who the fuck he is. He just goes to some man and is like, hey, Simon Ross is going to write an expose on Treadstone and Blackbriar. And then he's like telling him off. He's the director of the CIA and he's being told off by this man. So clearly he's quite powerful.
Is he a senator or something? Because he's got the little like US flag badge.
He does have that very senator office, doesn't he?
Yeah, but then there's just like, then he goes like, oh, I'll go speak to Bayer because no one else is allowed to speak to Bayer. It's like, are we implicating someone important here? And then no, it's just retired Air Force colonel. It's like,
but then like again, not said in the film, Bayer is supposed to have always been involved. Well, Tony Gilroy said his plan was that Ed Norton's character has been involved all along, and it's like he was instrumental in setting up Treadstone and Blackbriar and Larks and Outcome and all of this shit. But it's really unclear, like, he is just approached while jogging at night and then brought in. And then, like, you've got Corey Stoll geeking out about Bourne's test results. And Ed Norton is, like, telling him off. And he's like, hey, we are treating an infection. And we are trying to see how much we can cut away without losing the patient. And this,
but yeah, they're talking in this kind of, like, circular language. And it's just like, what on earth are they talking about? What's the infection? What is this? Why are we just not... I know these movies have to be full of exposition, but why is it so goddamn difficult for you to just say a sentence that makes sense?
Yeah, and it's never good when, like, villains just state their plan, but I could have gone for some of that here because it is never clear, and it's like, I can infer that, like, Blackbriar and Treadstone are going public. Let's make this let's minimize the mess as much as possible. Let's see what else would be implicated if these things came out. And like, he ends up recommending that they shut down or pause all of their programs and preserve the data and try again later, basically. And it's like, and you're seeing all these events playing out with like Vosen's right-hand man from Ultimatum calling Bayer to rat on him and being like, oh, Jason's coming to New York or whatever, or Jason's in New York. And I guess on some level it would be interesting to see, and like, you know, the idea that Ed Norton's like over the street or on a different floor or something the whole time. And like, I guess on some level that is an interesting exercise to write around the other movie, which one of its big hooks was it was taking place during events from the second movie and so on. But it just... it never fully comes together, and it all just seems to be beating you over the head with the fact that this isn't as good as that.
That's the thing, it's like each Bourne movie kind of added on to what the previous movie was doing, and it started showing like new sides to stuff and kind of going like, oh, this thing you thought you knew everything about, there's more to it. Whereas this is like, Paul Greengrass has finished building this immaculate house, and then Tony Gilroy's kind of gone like, right, but what if this small wooden shack over here was also part of the house?
I'm going to whack a gaudy extension onto the side that doesn't go with the rest of the architecture.
Exactly. It's like that, and it doesn't fit at all. The movie is just utterly bizarre in how it's paced, and I'm just now realising that at no point in this movie does Edward Norton have a conversation with either Jeremy Renner or Rachel Weisz.
No, he has a flashback with Jeremy Renner.
He does, but he just disappears out the fucking movie once Lark shows up.
Like confrontation or anything like that.
Like even Bourne Identity, which you kind of like were disappointed on the rewatch, has a scene where Bourne confronts Chris Cooper. That is in the movie. It isn't a big thing, but it's so weird that the entire movie is he's trying to become inoculated into this virus. Meanwhile, he's being chased, but neither side is aware that they're being chased, and it's just like the big boogeyman of the US government is chasing them.
Yeah. Jason had his confrontation with Brian Cox. He met Pam Landy. You know, he met his personal boogeyman in Hirsch, who is here, by the way. He's like caught on camera at dinner with this character, Dan Hillcott, who is the medical guy with Outcome, while Hirsch was the medical guy with Treadstone. And it's like, oh, this is on YouTube. There's like 6 of these. We're all fucked now. And it's like, why is that now? I genuinely don't understand. Yeah, it's just so poorly realised. And, like, I have to assume that Ed Norton signed up because they put maybe slightly more effort into writing his dialogue than most other people's. And I can see how he would see some of this written down and be like, yeah, I could do that. But then it just doesn't end well at all.
No, that's the thing is, I like all the process stuff with this, and it does make the government seem, like, really scary.
Yeah.
Where they're all kind of going, right, I want every single person who's on this flight, I want you to flash it up, show me their faces, see if there's anyone who looks weird. And, like, just all the kind of little things they have to do to keep track of them, and how quickly they're getting through it, where, like, they find out where they're going 45 minutes after they've landed. And it's like they had such a huge head start, and they've already managed to eat all that time back.
Yeah.
And it's a good role in terms of, like, showing how scary all this stuff is.
Yeah.
It's just, it doesn't amount to anything. It's like Tony Gilroy has a chip on his shoulder, and it's like, I want to show you how scary this stuff can be, but he didn't think of any way to actually make it, like, narratively interesting. So there's, like, a few isolated scenes of, like, this is a good idea, but in the context of this movie, it feels so out of place and so tonally weird, to the point where the next scene we're going to talk about is, I presume, the scene where Jeremy Renner gets a wolf tube blown up.
Yes, so Bayer orders them to kill all of the Outcome assets, and while most of them, they just are like, oh, we're switching you to these new pills that just kill them a few hours after they take them.
Is it even hours? Is it more like minutes?
I don't know, but not, like, immediately. Because Aaron is up in this safe house, they can't do that there, so they have a drone go and destroy the safe house. But Cross escapes, shoots one out of the sky, and then tricks them into thinking the other drone has killed him because he feeds his tracker to a wolf.
Well, no, because the first thing he does is he tapes a plate and some foil to himself.
Yes, to block the signal. Then he cuts it out of himself, and then he, like, lures a wolf into a trap and, like, wrestles it on the ground, puts a stick in its mouth and shoves the tracker down its throat, and then, like, apologizes to it. And it's all just so fucking bizarre.
Yeah, like, it's so heightened and so kind of out of nowhere for this franchise. This franchise, which is being quite realistic, to end up with wolf wrestling and the man becoming one with nature and utter bizarre stuff like that. For then the left turn the movie's about to take is so much more jarring, because it's like, in a movie that's taking itself a little bit less seriously, something more like a Mission Impossible, I'd still be taken out of the movie if Ethan Hunt decided to wrestle a wolf at one point, but it also wouldn't be the craziest thing that Tom Cruise and Ethan Hunt have done in the pursuit of those movies. It would be weird, but the movies are funny, and there's a deftness of tone. Even Skyfall has the scene where he
it's a little bit cheeky.
It's a little bit cheeky, but he jumps on the back of the Komodo dragon, and...
Like, we don't talk about those 20 minutes.
We will next week.
Yes, we will.
But it's nowhere near as bizarre as what this scene is.
Yeah, it's so strange. And, you know, him hearing the drone coming early and getting out, and then they blow it up. And
I do like that, like, you can't hear it as an audience, and then he goes back inside and then comes back out, and then you can start to hear it in the distance. I'm like, that's a nice little soundtrack, and I'll give them props for that.
Yeah, and, like, it leads into the, you know, they are enhanced bullshit, and he shoots one out of the air with a sniper rifle, and, like, when they're reacting to it, they're like, what's this guy armed with? It's like, probably a rifle. It's like, what?
It's a strong rifle.
I mean, yes, but it's a drone and it's snowing. And then, okay, Bayer has a flashback to when he was Cross's, like, CO or whatever in somewhere in the Middle East during the Second Gulf War, and how he's just ordered him to do something that was reprehensible, and it's like, what we do is necessary, we are sin eaters, this, that, and the other, you're off to Kuwait, off you go. And did you know this scene was cut from the theatrical release, and then they realised after they'd released it, how does he know who he is? So they had to put it back in when they did the DVD.
Why? The scene is bad. Like,
I know the scene is bad.
He would know who he is, surely.
No, but he's like, he sees his face and he's like, Aaron Cross, and they were like, wait, what?
Yeah, but surely if he's involved in Outcome, surely he would know who all the people involved in Outcome were. I would not bat an eyelid if this scene was not in the movie.
I
like,
know, it's just
dumb
funny
and means
to
nothing.
me when people release movies and then realise part of it doesn't work. Whether it actually does or doesn't is irrelevant.
This part does. This is not a part that I don't think works. There are other parts in this movie that I think make no sense. I'm now annoyed.
I'm saying whether it does or doesn't is irrelevant. The fact that they were like, shit, and put a scene back in because they were like, our film is broken. I think that's kind of funny.
But there are fundamental other scenes that are more broken. Can we just go watch Skyfall?
Right. Yeah, I'd love to watch Skyfall. So at a lab that manufactures, or they don't actually, I wrote down they manufacture Outcomes meds, but then the fucking film reveals later, we don't make them here. They do.
What do they do? They just test them?
They monitor the virus stuff. So,
right, but the live virus isn't there. What do they do?
8 months ago they did it. So one of the researchers kills everyone except for Marta Shearing, and then just before security can get to him, he kills himself. And then 4 agents go to Marta's house and try to kill her and make it look like suicide, but then Aaron Cross teleports in and saves her. So this shooting scene is awfully long when there's no, like, real why is this happening, you know? And, like, we spent so little time with her that, like, obviously we're sympathetic to the situation and we don't want her to die, but it comes across as though it's like, this character you really care about, so we're gonna have an extended sequence with her. And it's like, this movie is very, very long, and there are many, many scenes in it that are 5 to 10 minutes longer than they need to be. And this is just so drawn out, and just seeing him just gun them all down one by one, and from this frame of, like, mass shootings and stuff, it is all just so gross.
It's gross, it's manipulative, because it's playing off that stuff. The scene is functionally fine on its own. I just think in the context of this movie at this point, coming off the back of drones have just blown up a wolf because Jeremy Renner's like forced it to eat a tracker. It's so kind of awful. Like, look, genuinely, like, taken in a vacuum on its own, it's a fairly decent scene in establishing tension, and yes, there's a lot of torture porn elements of, like, literally you watch him walk around the room, shoot people in the face like 3 times, and he's just shooting them, and it's awful and horrific.
I like when she stops him from opening the door. That's fun. But the rest of it is like, oh god. And then it's like, did he deliberately let her, because they even asked that, like, why he let you live, but then he does try and kill her, but he just can't.
I don't mean that all feels like it's set up from them, where they're trying to make a false narrative behind it,
and they never fully clear up if he did this on orders, or he snapped when he heard that they were going to shut the program down, or he accidentally got exposed to chemicals, or is he just fucking crazy? I don't know, because they don't tell you. It's bad. Marta remembers examining Aaron when they're talking to her afterwards, and they're like, what happens in that medical room at the back? And he proceeds to harass her and show off by, like, counting in Russian and being like, you're so attractive and stuff like that. And that feels out of place. And then you see him doing his little montage of changing the license plates and getting passports, and it just comes up so weak in comparison to they do one of these scenes in every Bourne movie, and this one just doesn't feel as good. And then we're in her giant house, and she's being gaslit.
Rachel Weisz is good in this scene.
Mm-hmm.
She's very good at kind of showing, like, I don't know, I don't think the movie's intending to do it, but she's very good at kind of showing this, I don't want to say PTSD, it probably is PTSD, but she's obviously very much freaking out and just trying to, like, figure out what's going on.
Mm-hmm. And she's asking she says smart stuff. She's like, hey, what are you a doctor of? And, like, you know, actually, hang on, what's going on? And stuff like that.
It's just this is supposed to be kind of like this fun action movie, and then there's an extended sequence of two law enforcement agents forcing her into like an apparent suicide
while like putting suggestions in her head of like, oh yeah, he was in love with you, and oh, I thought he was gay, and is that why you think he spared you, and you know, snooping around her house a bit and stuff like that.
Yeah, and then like literally about half a scene later than this, there's a scene where Aaron Cross puts a nail in a fire extinguisher and fires at someone, and it's like, what is going on with this movie? Like this,
pick a lane.
Yeah, like again, like either you can be a little bit goofy fun and you can be doing the kind of super soldier thing, or you can be this kind of quite like it just isn't nailing the tone right. And I'm not saying that a movie can't thread the needle of both of these tones, but it's just going from these really quite serious and quite distressing moments to stuff that feels so out of whack with that. Like, I've not seen Birds of Prey yet, but like even that sounds like it has moments where it manages to thread the needle being goofy fun, but also having kind of actual quite horrific moments of like the way the villains treat them and whatnot.
Oh, 100%. Birds of Prey is great. And like I'm theoretically down for like, you know, the Men in Black have shown up to like lie to you and do a frame up and all of that, and it turning almost into a horror movie or something where she realizes what's happening. But then, like as you said, it's so all over the place tonally that even this doesn't work. And then Aaron just arrives out of nowhere, and like he later he doesn't even fully explain it. I mean, he says, you know, he remembers her and everything, and he's like, oh, you think they were just going to kill, you know, the agents? It's like, but it still feels, even with that explanation, very strange that these two characters that we've seen have one scene together where she's injecting him or whatever, or taking his blood work or whatever, and then he just fucking flies in out of nowhere and saves her from this execution and proceeds to have this. It's 1 hour into the goddamn movie until we have a fight scene, and it's not even. It's only okay. There's that one cool shot where he like scales the wall and we follow him in through the window, and then he shoots the person at the bottom of the stairs.
Yeah, it's the most Robert Elswit bit of the movie is that kind of shot. Like that feels like something out of Mission Impossible movie.
Yes, it does.
And the thing is, it's a really good shot and really quite cool in like how it's structured and how like it's all done in camera, so you see Renner jumping at the building and whatnot.
Yeah.
But it's also got this distinction of being like, you kind of sit there and go like, this feels so much not like a Bourne movie.
We've got no shaky cam or very little shaky cam going on. It's strange, and like the fire extinguisher feels like a vague attempt to do some Bourne stuff. Like this is what he's known for, improvised like weapons, because he doesn't actually love using guns. But then I don't know, none of the fight scenes are all that interesting. They don't have a huge amount of bite to them.
Yeah, no, I flat out gave this movie a half star less than I was intending to, because the final action set piece in this movie is so dull and so long.
It's so boring. The movie's basically almost over in my head in terms of scenes that are worth talking about.
There is really not much. There's not that much more to talk about, really. They burn the house down. Then they drive away in the car.
Yep.
Like the entire time in this, I thought they were going to move to another set piece.
No,
because there's the guy who's also at the house who they radio into.
For them to radio into,
yeah. Who like drives away and is just like, I had to get away from there. The fire engines are coming, and you're like, okay, cool. Wait, he's driving down the same road that they're at. They've stopped their car right now to have a conversation. Is he going to run to them, and they're going to have to like deal with him? And then
no, not at all. So she reveals to him that all of the outcome agents, like they were, so he keeps calling them chems. They have blues and they have greens, and
why has he come up with words for them? I
don't know, but
why is it such a dumb word? It's like. It's like a teenager kind of going like, oh, I need them chems.
But I think other people call them chems. That's the problem. I don't know. And like, so there's blues and greens. I think greens are the physical and blues are the mental.
Yeah, the green is the one that he's been fully virused with up to that point, but they're still giving them to him. And the movie like dangles a little bit and he goes like, ooh, why are you still taking the greens? Why are you still taking the greens? Like, oh, is that something you're going to answer? Oh no, it's not nothing you're going to answer.
Is it just to control us, man? Yeah, so they're using a viral infection to modify their DNA, and it's something to do with mapping, and that's what she does. And they fully infected them, so the physical changes are permanent, so he is permanently, like, strong and fast with good reflexes and all that shit. You know, you've seen a super soldier movie. But the blues haven't, and those are the ones that he's still got some of those, but not very many. And he's, you know, after shouting at her a lot, they agree to go to Manila. So him being, like, offended that she doesn't remember him, and like, oh, you just call me 5 and stuff like that, it's like, okay, this could be vaguely interesting, but it's coming across quite stalky here, that he's like, we've met 13 times, and I know he's got the photographic memory and all of that stuff, but then giving a shit about not having chems on her, being devastated to learn that they're kept overseas, personally blaming her for stuff that she has nothing to do with, being like, yeah, fine, go, I'm just going to find whoever tries to kill you next, and maybe they'll be helpful.
Yeah,
and
but
I
also
understand that, like, well, I don't even know if they are going for this, but like in a movie where they're just outright, yeah, he's a junkie, these scenes have a completely different tone, but when they don't actually fully commit to that, you are risking him just looking like a fucking dickhead.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's no, like, they give a reason now in like a minute where he's just like, oh, I'm going to go through like mental withdrawal or whatever, like however they phrase it, and like he will be like in a comatose state, essentially coming off these drugs.
Yeah,
and it's like that's supposed to be what's kind of like spurring them on to get more. But so much of the movie up to this point hasn't been kind of like reinforcing that this is a fact. They've kind of hidden this from us, and so it just feels like he is a junkie, but not committing to that plot threat. And it's just like you could have set it up in the conversation with the guy who knows what the drugs do earlier on in the movie, where like gives him the weird look when he says he hasn't had a blue in so long.
Yeah,
but they don't do.
Yeah. And I also I don't think they need to be blues and greens. Like, it comes across as like, there's no need. If it was just one pill and he was out of that one pill, it would have the same effect. So they do the scene where he's like, oh, you can't call anyone, and I'm really sorry. And he is lacking Damon's level of sympathy and emotional connectivity here. Like, the two of them lack the chemistry that Jason and Marie had, but it seems like a very obvious callback to when Jason is, like, calmly explaining to her and is like, I'm really sorry, but we're going to have to cut your hair, and we're going to have to do this, and we're going to have to do that. He reveals his real name is Kenneth J. Kitsom. So he wanted to join the army. His recruiter needed to fill a quota, so he lied and raised his IQ score by 12 points to make the minimum.
Which is bullshit to start with. Like, why on earth is anything hiring people based on their IQ score at this point when IQ is such a bad way to actually judge intelligence? But that's the thing, though.
The army... Did you know the army invented the multiple choice exam because it meant they could get more people in the army? That's a lovely factoid I've been carrying around for a good decade now.
As in, like, people are more likely to get the correct answer if you give them 5 options or 3 options.
If you let people guess, you're more likely to get some dum-dums past the test, is the idea.
As opposed to going, like, answer this question with nothing. I don't know.
Yeah. So, if he was 12 points below the minimum, that means his IQ was 73. That is borderline impaired, not my terminology, and average is 100. So,
is that Cross? Did you look this up, minimum to join the army?
I don't know, but I think I read it was like, oh, that makes it 73. So
the US military has minimum enlistment standards at about the IQ level of 85.
There you go. And that would make him 73 if he's 12 points below the minimum. And if average is 100, and most people are higher than average. Well, no, they're not, because then it would be
most people are not higher than average.
Most people are higher than the average. No, but you know,
I have a story related.
Maybe my IQ is 73 based on that, man.
Someone told me a story about someone who worked at our company who were doing numbers, and we kind of gave them an average for like what stuff was going to be, and their immediate response to that was, I don't want you to show me these numbers again until every single store is above average.
But then they wouldn't.
Yeah.
Surely he meant until all of them are above this average.
I mean, I'd hope so.
Okay. Jesus Christ. So Aaron doesn't want to be borderline impaired anymore, or again, or worse, it will turn out, is the reveal, is that coming off them will make him go past what he was. So he does some bullshit with a disposable camera to make a fake passport.
I was very confused by this. It's like, what? Again, it's a process movie that doesn't show you what the process is. Like, there's a cool bit where they go, like, this is a cool hack to fake your passport. But it's just like, yeah, he gets some, like, Play-Doh and puts it on and then tracks some wires and then takes lots of photos with a disposable camera and then, boom, fake passport, which I'm not going to show you.
But what he's actually doing is he is frying the digital chip that is contained in a passport to make it unreadable. So they're just having to go off the picture.
Again, the movie doesn't...
I know it doesn't. Everything I know about this movie, I didn't learn from the movie. Oh, Jesus. So they make it...
There's a difference between withholding stuff and making your audience kind of like have to figure it out based on context clues, and also straight up not giving you information or stuff to work with. Like, yeah. I don't know how passports work or what taking multiple photos with the digital camera is going to do. Like, there's not even a scene where, like, someone's scanning it through and kind of going like, ooh, the chip's not working. That isn't in the movie. If that was, I could figure it out. My IQ is not 73.
Mine might be, after watching this anyway. So they arrive in Manila, they bluff their way into the lab, Cross gets his viral treatment. In the background we have, it's revealed Hirsch died of a heart attack, I'm going to put that in air quotes, shortly before he was going to have to stand trial about Bourne's stuff. Bourne's picture is on the news, we are again reminded Aaron Cross is not Matt Damon. So we've said it like 3 times, so I don't think we need to say it that much more, but like, Bayer's team putting together where they are is kind of cool. What is really added by the airport and plane scenes with Aaron and Marta? What is really happening here? I'm actually asking you, what is happening?
What is happening here?
I don't know. What does this add to the movie? Is
Nothing.
my... Exactly. Could we have not just shaved those bits off and gone the whole way with the, like, how they tracked them? This film makes me sad more than anything.
I'm more annoyed now talking about it than I was in the movie. In the movie, I was just kind of bored. I'm now actively mad at this movie.
Yeah.
Mission Impossible 2 is a sexist piece of shit, but there's a gleefulness to the way it does action.
Backflip kicks, baby.
But yeah, exactly. Like, they are fully committed to what they're trying to do. And this feels like no one in this movie is committed to anything that's going on. The actors are there. They do their job. Yeah. They don't phone it in, thank God, because this movie would be unbearable if the actors were phoning it in.
It's about the only thing keeping it together.
This movie doesn't need to exist. Obviously, it shouldn't have existed based on the amount of money it made off its budget. Like, I mean, it made money. I'm sure it wasn't a complete loss, but Universal are probably looking at that return and going like, Jesus Christ, how much money do we have to pay Paul Greengrass and Matt Damon to come back?
Not that much, because both of their careers will take a downward turn and they'll just come right on back.
Hey, Paul Greengrass had Captain Phillips.
He did, that's true. That's true.
I
just really didn't like Green Zone, is all.
Yeah, that's fine.
There's a scene where Aaron, like, spaces out while they're in the factory, and I don't know if they intended it to be funny, but knowing what I know about his IQ score, it kind of made me laugh. So there's also the exposition of it's Treadstone without the inconsistency, it's Outcome without the emotional noise, and it's like, none of that makes sense.
Why is Outcome some kind of like emotional? What does that mean?
I know.
So far, all we know is Oscar Isaac fell in love with someone as he put him on top of a mountain in Alaska.
Emotional noise.
Emotional noise. There's guy in Pakistan. There's really quite ripped black guy and
Lady in Korea.
Lady in Korea, I think.
Yeah. And then possibly Paz and Desh. Who knows?
Possibly Paz and Desh. But, like, none of them have emotional noise.
Most of them don't talk. They seem like they have less emotional noise.
Yeah, I mean, again, like,
admittedly,
Aaron Cross straight up murders 3 security guards in this very scene.
So Bayer activates Larks while Corey Stoll is like, hey, can we do this thing? Like, really, like, as if he's, like, got the answer for the teacher or whatever. And then they're like, yeah, okay, let's do Larks. And then he's like, yeah! And it's just like, what? Is this how you would talk about this assassination program? Larks 03 is a brainwashed super soldier assassin who gets on a flight and goes to try and kill Cross, who is briefly suffering from viral treatment complications. Because
you say briefly. We should really briefly. Like, he wakes up the next day and he's fine, and it has no.
It just means he has flashbacks. He has flashbacks to his treatment, and he looks fucking awful. Like, they did a good job of that, but
nothing bad happens to him because he's gone through this in the final action set piece. Yeah.
It just means he's waiting in the place while they're surrounding him, and she's off buying him medication.
And then she shouts, and then the chase happens.
It's so bad.
I know. Yeah, and
I don't want to talk about this final chase.
Yeah, the chase should be considered a form of torture. It is so boring. Nothing happens. She fucking kicks him off the bike. He's supposed to be this elite mega soldier. I'm not saying a person getting kicked off a bike wouldn't kill them, but it's a very anticlimactic finish while Aaron is like passed out at the wheel, as it were. Yeah, like, it's fucking trash.
You come from multiple Bourne movies that finish with like actually quite good car chases, where like it feels realistic, it feels like embedded in the world, and like the cars are getting beaten up, and it's like, oh, this is fun, I'm enjoying this. And then you watch this, and you're like, what's going on?
Yep.
Where are we? Who's doing the chase? There's no weight or anything.
He crashes off his bike and then gets up, gets back on his bike, catches them. Is his bike faster? Why did he catch them? It's fucking trash. Having a Terminator stalking them around and then just doing this substandard chase on foot and then another substandard chase on a bike, and then Aaron passes out, so she has to save the day, which, you know, cool. And then that's it. It's over.
Yeah, that's it. There's no final scene. There's no final scene with Edward Norton. Yeah. There's no... What made interesting in the previous movies, or at least in the first movie, was Jason Bourne had a personal connection sort of to all of the other people he was kind of killing in that movie.
Yes.
Like they were related to him in some way, and obviously like they get further and further away from that in the next two, but they're all people who are like him and they have a conversation about it. There's nothing like that in this movie, where
he had never met another person in Outcome before.
Yeah, he'd never met another person in Outcome, but it's
he's
not
definitely never met anyone in Larks. He didn't.
Yeah, Aaron Cross and Larks do not have the conversation. Larks
03, thank you very much.
Sorry, Larks 03. They don't share
a character name they give an Asian actor who gets no lines. Larks 03. Good stuff.
I just don't know what the thought process was.
They weren't thinking. They weren't thinking at all. And then Noah Vosen lies to the Senate and claims that Blackbriar just existed to get Jason Bourne, and Pam Landy has committed treason. And then she's dragged away or like escorted through paparazzi and stuff.
Which feels questionable at best, because they're just like, oh, you can read these. No one understands what's in these documents, especially not her, but she's leaked them and that's illegal. And it's like, what?
Trivia leads me to say that allegedly one of the documents that Bourne handles in Ultimatum from the safe says something about how Blackbriar's changed to be about getting Jason. It's like, okay, but that doesn't mean this isn't bullshit. Like, and then it's just like, oh, they gave the fisherman that security man in the factory's watch so he could just sail them around. And then, like, Rachel Weisz gives him a look that he does not deserve because she's magnetic and charming, and they have no chemistry, and they almost resisted doing a love story, but then they do all these multiple close-ups of their hands and stuff, and then she's basically like, hey, can we just bang in exotic locations maybe? And then they play the Moby song, and we're done. And nothing has been resolved, and none of it was good.
And we will never get a sequel to it, even though they threatened to have Justin Lin direct another one.
I know, fuck.
But
this
movie. At least Justin Lin is good at doing action.
Yeah, well, you'll never get to see it, thank God. What a piece of shit. I put it at the bottom of the list. You put it above Mission Impossible 2. I want you to change it right now.
Again, I can't in good conscience. Mission Impossible 2 is...
Fine, everyone here is acting, and I suppose the camera is successfully pointed at things. And I guess the music isn't bad. But, my God, one of the worst scripts we're going to encounter, possibly on any podcast we do, and we did a lot about fucking superhero movies. So,
I know.
Villain Watch, Eric Byer is nothing. I mean, Ed Norton is fine, but like you said, he gets no real payoff with Aaron Cross. Aside from that flashback, there is nothing to make it personal between them. Maybe that would have been better if it wasn't personal, because then you're expecting a personal payoff, where it's like, hey, I remember you. But no, none of that. He just fucks off after.
I don't even want to make the assumption that they made this with the expectations that they would get sequels to do more. Is the weird thing. And maybe, like, I don't think Hollywood's at that point where it's they're not doing the whole, like, the MCU hasn't taken off yet, really, enough to have an impact on this movie, where...
The Incredible Hulk's own Ed Norton.
Yes, but, like, after the Avengers, obviously everyone kind of goes like, oh shit, this is how you make movies now. And everyone starts to do, like, we need to do world building, and we'll do world building immediately in one movie. And I don't think this movie's attempting to do that, but it does feel so weird that, like, there's nothing to make
this feel like a satisfying, complete narrative has happened. Even less so than the Bourne identity, which does kind of feel like it concludes something, even though you don't get the full picture of what it does until the end of Bourne Ultimatum, which is one of the more impressive things about that trilogy. Yeah. But this movie does nothing.
And like, even the zoom out on the boat is inferior to the zoom out in Mykonos when he finds her again in her scooter shop, you know, like, because that's like a cute little callback. And this is just like, oh, and what if they just love each other now? And yeah, nothing is resolved with any of these villains. Not with Ed Norton, not with Stacey Keach, not with Dennis Boutsikaris. Should have rehearsed that before I tried to say it for the first time. You know, the support team of like Corey Stoll and Donna Murphy and Michael Chernus, like, they get more camera time than these support teams normally do, but still not very much to them. Kramer and Hirsch are back, but there's not really much going on there either. Vosen getting one last villainous dig in is kind of potentially the best thing to happen with a villain in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can say the movie's going for a point where it's like, it doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't matter. Like, they have the conversation where Aaron Cross goes to Marta Shearing and goes like, I don't know why I did their full names then. Where he goes through and goes like, do you think you can give this information fast enough and hard enough that like they're not going to just kill you, or like something along those lines? And it feels like the movie's kind of making an exaggerated point around that, where it's like, it doesn't matter that Bourne leaked this information at the end of the last movie because they'll
control it. Yeah,
they'll control it.
And Ed Norton repeatedly says things about get this story out there and stuff like that, because they cook up the thing of like, oh, we could say she's taking home like top secret samples and stuff. And it's like, good, I love it. That's a great angle. Let's do that. And all of that is scary, but not fully realised.
Yeah, that's the thing, is because the movie doesn't end with anything like that, where like we don't get to see the extent of like, well, we need to cover up this Larks thing. What are we going to do to cover up this Larks thing? Or
nothing. You will never hear the word Larks out loud again. And yeah, Larks 03. Theoretically, the final fight villain is introduced 1 hour and 40 minutes in and is dead within 15 or 20 minutes, or maybe 6.5 years, however long that fucking chase lasts.
Yeah, and isn't even like a particularly interesting physical threat.
No hand-to-hand fight, chases him on a bike, dies. Great. Did you throw up? No, because the shaky cam is gone. The staple of Bourne. Just the chases, I think. They did a bit of that in the chase scenes, but the fights, all gone. No punch sound effects. Just, it's not Jason Bourne if you're not almost throwing up. Female agency, you know, Rachel Weisz is trying. I like that she's smart enough to, you know, outwit the shooting thing at the beginning. I like that she gets to kill Larks. I don't like Aaron Cross berating her for all of this shit. I don't like that they couldn't resist that little romance thing at the end. And it's not like she has nothing to do, like a lot of the characters we've covered so far. Like Marie arguably doesn't really have much to do, and the various Mission Impossible female agents don't have much to do. She has things to do, it's just it's entirely be traumatized by things that are happening to you, and that kind of sucks. But I wouldn't say it's like outright sexist in the way that Mission Impossible 2 is.
No, it is not that. There are no conversations where people talk about women are like monkeys. They won't let go of one branch until they've got a firm grasp of another.
Fuck.
You forgot that, didn't you?
Yeah. It kind of seems like she's the only woman in it, but that's not true. There are various women dotted throughout, but she's the only one that's a real character. Like, Donna Murphy, I guess, is a presence in those little scenes where they're trying to surveil, but that's about it.
Joan Allen shows up for
Joan Allen does her one scene. I regret many things. This isn't on the list. Blah, blah, blah. Movie's fucking over. We get to do Skyfall next week. Oh.
Again, this when I was watching it, I was like, this is boring, but there's stuff that I'm enjoying. The final fight not went out of me.
You sent me a text in the middle and you were like, I feel it's getting better and it's getting more confident in its ideas. I was like, just you fucking wait. When they get on those bikes.
And yeah, now talking to it, I'm just like, oh god, what a wretched piece of shit this was.
This is awful. This is the least enjoyable film we have covered on any of our podcasts, I think. Not worst, least enjoyable.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. Is it's competent with decent performances, but like I will never watch this movie again.
Enjoyed watching Catwoman more than I enjoyed watching this.
Yeah, like I am actively annoyed that we have had to watch this movie for this now.
What if I just don't release this episode and we pretend it goes the Bourne, it goes Ghost Protocol, Skyfall, just Matt Damon did all 4 Bourne movies? You know? What if? We can't do that. Go to entertherealworld.com. Stay tuned for next week.
To be fair, other podcasts on this network have covered worse stuff than this.
Suppose.
Yeah, we haven't had to do Suicide Squad.
Speaking of which, go listen to the Superhero Pantheon, who are just cranking out the hits now with Megamind and My Super Ex-Girlfriend and Hancock.
I don't actually know if that's what they're covering soon, but I assume that's what they're going to be getting to soon.
I took what you said as gospel. Shit, alright, I can't leave that in now.
No, I assume that, I think they are getting to Hancock soon, but like, I will assume that like at some point.
Alright, well apparently there are yet more superhero movies out.
I go text Jerome and go like, when you're covering My Super Ex-Girlfriend. Okay. See how that goes.
They kind of have to now, if that's their mission, Steve. Oh, God. Real Bad, first week of every month. That is the Breaking Bad podcast with Jerome and Kevin. Kevin's Flooping the Pig continues on as they work through their archive. There will be new episodes recorded later this year. And what a piece of shit this was. At least we get to do Skyfall next week. Woo! I'm excited. This podcast self-destructs in 5 seconds and it can't come soon enough. End me, please. Bye.
Secret